Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Trino contributor call in June 2025. Got a couple of us here already, so we're just gonna roll right into it, which is awesome. Um, we had a request from Roy to talk first. He has time restrictions and wants to talk about the history server demo, or like give us a bit of a demo and discussion about his history server work, and then also potentially talk about benchto. So Roy, take it away. I'm gonna stop sharing and roll with that.
Hi guys. So if you remember, I think it was 2 meetings ago, we talked about ourselves trying to implement sort of history server. Mainly the idea I think comes from the Spark history server, but it makes sense. We don't want to save all the history on the coordinator's memory. So unfortunately, I don't have a live demo to show, but I do have the outline of what we did. And part of me displaying it is firstly looking for people who want to join us and help us contribute it back. So now it's sort of a standalone project, and we want to know what modifications we need to make for the code in order to contribute it. And yeah, so knowing the modifications, and if people want to test it out, I can share. Okay, so basically, what we did at the beginning is use the query completed event, and that is being sent to our history server, which is just a web server, basically a Java Spring Boot app. And the history server exposes a route, but anyone can change that. And when we get a query completed event, we ping the coordinator back, expecting to get the JSON that all of you guys know, present us the actual query plan. And this is a bit about the flow. So we have the coordinator on the onCompleted event sending something to our history server. And then based on that, it fetches the query JSON and persists it to however it wants. We implemented 3 backend options. So we have the local file system, and we have S3 connector, we can call it that. And we also have a JDBC one as well. So 3 options, which I think cover pretty much the basic background ones. Ourselves, we're going to use a bjson on Postgres. That's our thoughts. And then what happens now is now it's a forked repo. But what happens here is that the coordinator, which will bring up, what it will do instead of fetching from itself, from its memory, the queries that it has, it's going to fetch from our server. So for this, we have 2 configurations. And then basically what you can do is fetch from the DB the JSON that needs to be displayed. That's pretty much the outline of it. So what we currently have is the fork of the official repo, which will use the Helm chart and everything, but with a slim version of Trino, and upload that up. So essentially you have this sort of coordinator, which is just a web history server. And then we have the external service, which holds everything and does the parsing of the query. And that's that. If anyone has any questions or ideas.
One maybe quick question. So can you go back to the diagram for the flow for how you're populating queries?
Sure, this one?
Yeah. So why do you have this like two-legged flow where the coordinator sends something to the history server, which tells the history server to then go fetch back from the coordinator? Why aren't you just sending the payload in the original message, sort of a one-way communication instead of this like, just send the information instead of telling the history server to fetch
So,
the information?
so from my understanding, the onCompleted event doesn't send the entire information, which is then later displayed. So it's 2 different JSONs. You can think about it like that. This was like the easiest way to get something up and running. Essentially, we could create another fork which instead of saying the uncompleted JSON A when we need the other JSON, but then that would have us having all of our Trino clusters like being forked instead of just the one history server one.
So
Yeah, I see. So
this seems to be driven by the desire to not change the UI. So I believe the reason you want to fetch the original internal JSON is so that you can feed it into the UI without changing it. An alternative would be to modify the UI so that it can work off of effectively what's in the query events, which is like what we did at Starburst for this. Is like we just worked off the query events, and I think the other part that's going to be difficult for most people to use is the way the query history listing works. Like when you get the what are all the in the normal UI, you have like all the queries that are available, and how you actually search over that. That probably needs UI also. Like, I mean, it's probably fine for the UI to work off of to have a very fast updating thing for its last, I don't know, few hundred queries or whatever. But after that, you should probably be in the land of searching, in which case you'd need a search commands on the back end.
Yeah, of course. And some sort of pagination as well, yeah. That's correct.
Possibly, yeah.
For now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how the UI is, what the user experience is desired for that.
Yeah, so for now, we have our sort of BI page with all your histories, and that's on our Elastic, or technically Kibana dashboard. And then from there, we're going to inject a URL that will just open straight away the query page in Trino. So the search part is on the Kibana, and then because that was again the easiest way to get something up and running. Mm-hmm. And then from here on, we're open to ideas essentially.
Yeah, I don't know who's working on the UI or the new gateway stuff, but my guess is that should be part of the design of who's ever working on the gateway UI to have it interact with a history server, which is actually much more in line with the gateway anyway, since it's serving multiple clusters. So, and then I would drive it off of the data in the event. It's good enough. There's additional data, but honestly, the additional data is really only useful when the queries are still running. They're more about the state changing as the thing's running. Whereas once the event's complete, you really have everything you need to drive the entire UI.
Yeah, I think +1, I'm definitely very interested in this, and maybe we can spend some cycles to collaborate. But for us, doing this kind of song and dance at query completion time is going to be a non-starter. I think we, and probably many other people, we already collect and persist the events. So having some UI to display them, right now we have this horrible crap UI that just shows some very basic information. But we have the data. We just need, to connect it to something that knows how to show that payload. So I think we would probably be interested in collaborating on something that can take that payload and just you have a pluggable way that put in a query ID, get back a JSON payload, show it on a UI. And I agree with Dane that if we can do that in the gateway, that would be amazing and probably fit well with what a lot of people already have set up for query event collection.
Yeah, on the UI front for the gateway and stuff like that, I think that's a similar model, right? We got the query UI from George donated. That's a standalone module at the moment, and we're gonna try to make that so that UI component can be published to NPM registry and then sucked into the gateway as a component there, and also sucked into Trino itself as a component. This sounds sort of like a similar thing where we have a standalone component web UI that's pluggable enough to go and be part of the gateway UI for people that run multi-cluster, and otherwise also get into the newer Trino preview UI that uses the same stack, right? So like there's a lot of work in getting this all aligned, but I think that's ultimately the cleanest approach for moving forward with that. I can't see it otherwise. Like the danger also is with the Trino, like the existing old Trino UI, if you marry yourself towards too much to that, we are probably going to throw that away eventually. Like once the Trino the preview UI is clean enough and nice enough and covers, like is as good or better as the old UI, we are not gonna like hold on to that old one. That's a long time away, obviously, potentially, depending on how fast we get this development happening. But like that's the long-term vision, right? So
Yeah, I mean, potentially we can use the history page on the gateway and then maybe add just another column for the, like, I don't know, query plan, and then have that link.
yeah, something like that.
'Cause-
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is that sort of enough feedback for you, Roy? Sorry.
Yeah. I think I'll be in touch with Eric afterwards,
Yeah,
and we'll
sure.
see how to
Like we can
collaborate on
definitely
that.
also discuss this like on the dev sync, or like the gateway dev sync, or like whenever
Sure.
like set something up separately, you just the two of you, or whoever is like interested in working on this. Cool. Since you have the
Awesome.
round, do you also want to quickly talk about benchto?
Yeah, so we were starting to play around with benchto, which is on the Trino actually GitHub, but we found a lot of issues there, with images being like really old, and we can't even like use Docker to load them because it's in a different Docker API or something like that. We talked about it on Slack a bit, and what we were wondering if there is any future to the project, if anyone's using it, because we don't mind working on those issues, but if no one else seems to be like involved or interested, then I guess maybe, I don't know, a custom private one is better.
No, benchto is not very well supported. I mean, we use it at Starburst, but it's I guess it's an old design, old libraries, old architecture. So we need something better. If someone wants to spend time coming up with something better on that in that front, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think it's had serious work in 10 years, Martin. But
Yeah.
when I remember the last time someone seriously worked on it, yeah, I know Martin and those guys have been thinking about like how to improve it, like really like switching to something modern like a JUnit backend, or so you can actually run stuff. It's like it's hard to maintain and work on, and like it's hard to even just like run one test, like not JUnit, the JMH. Yeah.
Oh, JMH. Oh, well, JMH
Yeah.
for micro benchmarks, but no, benchto has too many things. It has the components for driving the execution, for I think managing deployments, the database for keeping track of all the results, the UI, and all those pieces are old. So we need something better to be able to run benchmarks locally. I mean, on your IDE or whatever, but also a system that allows you to run benchmarks, compare runs, and manage all that infrastructure in a more.
Yeah, ideally you could just point it at Amazon and it just, you pay money and you get results. Like,
I mean, one of the things we've wanted for a long time is to have people that are using Trino to be able to run benchmarks on their own workloads and then report to the project saying, hey, this upcoming release has these problems, or it improves in this or that way. And that is predicated on having tooling that people can go and deploy easily, and we don't have that. That's just not the right thing. Too many moving parts, and they're hard to manage and set up.
And there's numerous like crazy home-baked custom like testing frameworks at various places, but it's just like Taro has like done presentations in the past about like massive like test runs and like compatibility checks and stuff like that, but it's all very custom at the time. So like nothing never like unfortunately came up in the community, and I'm also not aware of anything that's like generic like as a tool that can sort of like do that well, where we could just jump and like adapt that and use it. So I don't know.
For instance, we have some people that they use JMeter for driving query executions instead of the custom benchto driver. So maybe there's something we can look into with JMeter from that front. But then there's a reporting side, and how do you navigate the results? How do you get reports? How do you slice and dice and customize your runs? All those things need to be rethought.
So sounds like a lot of work.
It is, yeah, it is. But yeah, I don't know if you have cycles to start looking into this. I mean, we can break it down into smaller pieces. Yeah, I think you need to start with what are you trying to measure first? What are you trying to see? And then maybe from that we can figure out, okay, we need to build something minimal that does that, and then decide how to incrementally expand on that.
Is there like an issue or something, Martin, like that was created to sort of track something like that already? I thought we had talked about that in the past.
I don't think we have an issue. Yeah, I mean, we mostly talked about it.
Yeah, so it might be worth even starting with like an issue where we have some sort of like place to chat about this more. And if it gets bigger, we can even like have a separate Slack channel. But for now, I would just keep it in the core dev channel and sort of like jot your ideas down somewhere wherever convenient.
Sure, sounds good.
So don't dive into benchto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Roy. Cool.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Next topic I had just quickly wanted to mention to everyone and also ask around. Java 24 is now required in Trino. How is everyone going with that? Props to Wendigo, Mateusz and others to make this happen again. Does anyone have any bad or good news?
We are running JDK 24 in production for almost a month now, so it works. We even experimented with the compressed object headers, like the compact object headers, which like brings the object header size to 64 bits, and it also works, so no issues.
Is that a configuration that we could add for a general, like as a general configuration for everyone, or?
Yes, but this is still experimental feature in the JDK 24. It will be a production feature in JDK 25. So once we switch to JDK 25, we'll make it the default in the JVM config.
Okay, so
JDK 25 on that note is also being tested right now. Since the JDK entered the rundown phase, which basically like is a code freeze. I've been testing with the latest build, and it also works without any code changes. So we're basically ready for JDK 25 at this stage.
Oh, September.
Yeah.
Have you experimented with virtual threads yet? Or like HTTP?
Yeah, I did, but I am waiting for the new Jetty version that has some changes around the memory handling and threading to actually benchmark it. So
yeah, please post when that you think it's working, because I'd like to give it a shot, see how it works for us.
Sure.
Cool. Anyone else on Java 24 playing around or having experiences or blockages from it? All right, cool.
Yeah, I have to say, it feels like, honestly, for all the cool stuff in it, it feels like a very mundane release, which is great. Like, just works.
Yeah, the biggest issue was the removal of the security manager that affected like the legacy Hadoop Hive code that was using the subject, so like the UDI and so on. Other than that, that's like a pretty boring release.
So did we have a lot of changes to the Hadoop Apache?
We actually patched that like previously. Once the subject doS was deprecated, we started moving
Oh,
the
I remember
squad
those changes. Yeah.
to the subject calls. So actually, the only thing that was blocking us was the Kafka client, which was still using the old API, but they patched that with the 4.0 release. So once they released, we updated and everything's working. So
Yeah, it's a really simple change. Like, I'm surprised. Like, there's probably a bytecode rewriter for it. Like, you just call a different method. So, what was I going to ask? I'll come back to it.
Cool. All right. I wanted to just quickly give you a heads up. All that. No, where is it? On the Trino website, we now have a Trino Software Foundation page, or also a sponsor and support page. So just for those of you who need to know more about like how the project is governed, or like what we're looking for in terms of help, we always need more help. The project is very active and we don't have enough maintainers, reviewers, and just help with releases and stuff for that. And as you can see from like the query UI and all the other UIs, there's lots of things we would like to do. And if anyone is in a position to provide more help for the project, that would be awesome. There's a couple of like sort of tips what you can do as an individual, as a company, in terms of events and that kind of stuff. So please have a look at that. And if there's anything unclear or whatever, just reach out to us on Slack. And we appreciate you all for helping the project. It's super awesome.
Yeah, Manfred, on that front, Dave, and I have been talking about introducing the concept of a component maintainers for within the Trino code base, and we're going to start with the idea is to start with some connectors. There are people across different organizations have a lot of experience with certain connectors, and they're very active in those parts of the code base. So we're thinking of getting some of those people involved and basically making them maintainers for those components. So
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we're still trying to identify some of the people. There are some developers at Bloomberg. I know maybe Eric at LinkedIn, there might be a few that could get involved as well. So we're going to be rolling this out in the near future.
Okay, cool. Like, let me know how you can help with that. And also, like, I think it might be worth considering that also for other plugins. Specifically, I'm thinking about the Ranger plugin and OPA. Those are like pretty complex separate beasts, and might be worth also pulling people in for those.
Definitely OPA. Yeah.
So that'd be super awesome. I'm not sure how we, like, if there's any mechanics problems or so, whatever. It might be a bit of a gentleman's agreement since the code base is very shared, but I think that's probably fine.
Yeah, it is. The problem is with GitHub, there's no way to say someone is allowed to merge a change only if it touches a certain folder or something. So you can require a review from someone, but you cannot prevent someone from merging, which is kind of the opposite of what we want.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think we all talk to each other regularly and we're in contact. So, if you make a mistake, we fix it.
Someone could write a bot that does this, and then you have to get a review from that bot, like someone who knows GitHub's APIs pretty well. Anyways.
Yeah, we're talking about that with Eric Anderson. The other day, he actually sent me something, a prototype of something we can do, but it's mostly, you can't, maybe with the actions we can have something that approves or blocks, but we have to look into that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, to start with, it would be people that we work with, that we trust. So everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing and not supposed to be doing. So
yeah, that's cool. We can always help on onboarding,
Why doesn't
like pairing for a while and stuff like that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
why doesn't code owners satisfy this? Like, I guess this is what you're talking about, that it's like a required review as opposed to merge permissions.
Right. I think if I recall, code owners says if you modify a file in a given part of the code base, it will require a person to review it, but it doesn't prevent a person that, for example, let's say we wanted you, Eric, to be maintainer of the Iceberg connector. You can put a code owner that says you are part of that group, but it doesn't prevent you from merging something from the Hive connector.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Oh, actually, this should be fairly straightforward with another test, like a test runner that just checks a file and like fails.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we were looking at with Eric Anderson. I think, we need to make some change in the way we configure the GitHub project to require all checks to pass before they can be merged, and I mean, there's some other things we have to look into. But
yeah, I think
you can I think you can say require it and then just give an override to the existing maintainer group or team.
Well, or set the existing maintainer group as a code owner for everything, and then nothing can merge unless one of the existing maintainers or a subset reviews.
We need override for other reasons. Sometimes there are flaky tests that you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I have a sort of related question. So, as part of our package improvements, we we threw away the RPM, and we made the core container and the core tarball, and now the bigger tarballs. And I started removing some stuff that's basically useless, like the example HTTP connect, like event listener or whatever. I don't know how far to go with that, like how far we should try to make the default tarball smaller versus leaving them in. Like the default tarball is like a gig or something like that. Like it's pretty big. What's our feeling about sort of making more things optional? I started a PR to make the Teradata functions, for example, optional. That's currently breaking. I haven't had time to like check why. It's probably some integration test stuff that like just doesn't have them anymore because I've removed them, so they fail. It's like but what's our feel general? Like before I invest a lot of time getting rid of components and like making them work, if anyone wants to keep them anyway, then there's no point me wasting the time on that. But I can see things like OPA or so that have very little usage would make sense to remove out of the default thing.
Yeah, my thought is the default tarball should be pretty small, but we should have a script or a tool or something that makes it trivial to install a new component.
Well, we have the Trino packages repository that allows you to do that pretty separately for the tarball and the Docker container. Is it as simple as like doing a like plug and install in Trino itself? No. So it's like, well, how simple is simple, right?
That would be ideal in the long term. But even if it's a script that you run it and you say install the blah plugin here in this unpacked version of the tarball, then I go some downloads it from the right place, and
well, that's
the problem. Yeah.
Have a look. That's what the Trino packages does for like there's a example setup. And you can just comment out and uncomment things that you want or don't want included. And I'm trying to make that like update with every release. And I'm currently working on the 476. There's some problems with the RPM, but like that's basically there. I don't know if it's simple enough. It's very well documented and works. Jan has done a lot of the reviews. Mateusz looked a bit. But I just don't like, if we want that to the default tarball and Docker container lighter, we can like throw a lot of things out, right? Like things that are like barely used connector wise, or like, like OPA or so that's too complicated for most people, or Ranger that a lot of people probably don't want to use anyway. Like that kind of stuff. So then maybe it would be nice to get some feedback on that packaging if there's anything else we need to improve there, and I'll look into like sort of what to throw out next if that's a consensus that we want to get it lighter.
Manfred, a related question. Where are we on the RPM? I haven't looked in a while. Have we moved it out yet?
The RPM is gone and disappeared from Trino itself. It's in the Trino packages repository only, and you can still build it. Like, so what I'm doing there in that repo is there is a tag for every version that we do. So you can check out the 474 tag and build the RPM. You can check out the 475 tag and build the RPM. And currently I have a PR open for 476. Unfortunately, the Red Hat minimal container RPM stuff is falling apart at the moment. I haven't had the chance to debug that, but like, so that's kind of my aim. That like I basically have a tag for every release of Trino in the packages repo, so somebody can just check out the tag. Everything is there, and you can just build your custom tarball or your custom Docker container with that.
Oh, that's great. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That gives me enough to run with. Eric, Vishal, Carlos, James, any topics? What's up?
We have a lot of changes we need to get upstream. We've released Trino, and now we're first-class citizen products with Bloomberg, by the way. So it's great. Love it.
Awesome.
And 90% of our time is spent in open access controls and now enhancing user attributes versus just groups. So everything that we do is access control based, it seems.
Yeah, if there's still a need to get this access control, OPA support, whatever repository created, Martin or Dane can hopefully like create that with whatever random name, and then you can throw stuff and work in there if that's still something you want to do.
Oh, we'd love to get rid of it. I mean, we still use Ranger just as a UI editor.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't. But we don't use the plugin anymore. We haven't used for at least a year. But we have all the rego code, which reads the Ranger policies and enforces it.
Yeah, so I don't know, Dane, Martin, is it worth doing a repository where the folks from Bloomberg can like sort of throw their OPA support stuff separately?
Didn't we already do that?
I don't think so.
No.
I thought we talked about it for like repeatedly, but it never actually happened.
Look, it's easier to put the stuff on. It's being recorded, but it's easier to put the stuff under Trino than it is under our own.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
organization.
Yeah. So do you want to you just need a repo for it? Like
a repo
Martin.
And a couple of people access, probably like Pablo, Eric, and I don't know who else.
Martin, do you want to set that up?
Yeah, we can do that. Just send me.
Need the repo name, and it's probably Pablo, and I don't know who else. Yeah.
Pablo, me, Vishal would be and Andy were the forming people that work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, send me Eric. Send me the list of people, and then we can coordinate what's
Sure.
in the repo.
Yeah, we're now taking JWT claims and making that first-class citizens inside of OPA too, so that you can use that for keying on various user membership and user attributes.
Awesome.
So from like the Pinterest side, we were wondering if like the roadmaps or the performance roadmaps of Project Hummingbird or the Subquery cache roadmap, if those are still actively in development. The context is that at Pinterest we use Hive and Iceberg Connector a lot, and we have started to see the issue where there's a lot of query shapes from our users that are really similar, and we see an opportunity for to reduce the redundant computation, or see an opportunity to reduce the CTs in one query, or even look into other things, other solutions from like the Presto or Facebook Presto open source project where they use like fragment result caching. So we're wondering if there's any future plan for the performance roadmaps.
So the subquery cache, I mean, there's some work that happened, but unfortunately it's not, doesn't have the right shape. There's a lot of hacks and making some assumptions and taking things in a direction that we don't want to go to. So, but there's no one working on that right now. So, yeah, I mean, if this is an area where you guys want to invest, that's definitely a possibility.
Just also to clarify, our roadmap items are sort of more like a bucket for like, this is what we like to do, and we put things in when we end up having time or resources to actually get work done. But it's kind of like not predictable how and when that happens.
And the roadmap is basically like what people are willing and able to work on. There's no one that is that owns the development of the project. So it's whatever the volunteers of the project are willing to contribute. So.
That sounds good.
So like concretely, Carlos, if there's interest from your end to work on some of that, or like look at other implementations that are potentially suitable to port over or so, and then we could like discuss further on like, are they suitable? Do you have time? And that kind of stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, we could definitely take a look. Because currently right now, probably won't be happening anytime soon, since we're currently on Trino 446 because we only support JDK 21 at Pinterest. So we'll have to wait until like the next long-term Java. Then we could probably start looking into it if we want to start looking into one of these solutions and potentially implement one into the Trino open source.
Sorry, Eric. But yeah, Java 25 September, I guess. But just keep in mind, right? Like,
eagerly awaiting.
Like in March, we're going to go 26, right? So it's like, you have to push your organizations to be more proactive and get on with it.
We have the same problem. I think the other big corporations have the same problem, Manfred.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the same time, the big corporations also run the latest and greatest of JavaScript stuff, and like Go applications is no problem to get whatever latest. So it's a bit of a cultural thing in different ecosystems as well.
I mean, it's just the historic thing. It's the belief that like the Java that ships with an application is basically some managed thing for IT to deal with, and it's just like, that's old school. So that's okay. They can always switch to Spark if they want.
Oh, I can't believe you said that. Jesus.
I mean, it only cost them like 10 times as much in hardware to save, a little bit of annoyance.
Hey, David, thanks for jumping in as well. Great presentation. I'm going to get that live, by the way. David presented in Taipei, and I think Martino also did a bunch of presentations, but I'm not sure where they were, or if there's videos available, we can also like advertise those. But yeah.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. Might as well mention the Lakehouse connectors merged. So give it a try. This basically combines together Hive, Iceberg, Delta, Hoodie into a single interface and just works. So kind of like what you want, but way easier.
Oh my God, I can't believe it. Hallelujah.
Yeah, well, sorry I sat on that review. It actually was super simple code. I was just busy.
Yeah. That brings up a good point. Like, I think that's also something where we have a bit of a pain points with like Unity catalog support and like metadata stores and stuff like that. So if anyone is like working on that and can potentially help with getting Unity catalog working again, or whatever people actually want to use, like, I mean.
Yeah, Unity just has like a REST interface now, right? Like Glue does.
I don't know what the old one got deprecated, and like so we.
Yeah, they got rid of their thrift interface, which is like good news because it did not work very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't be hard to add something by just looking at what was done with the glue stuff. Also, like the Polaris, someone was talking about using Polaris, and that should also be fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
To like add a like native integration to it.
Yeah, we have Polaris working with full integrations. It just works.
Polaris?
Yeah. We're using Apache Polaris. Yep.
How do you, is it like, are you using like a thrift interface?
I don't remember how we did it. We did it as a hackathon. I'll take a look.
Yeah, if there's an implementation of the Trino metastore interface, whatever it's called for Polaris, like please at least like put it up then, because there was that discussion on core dev maybe, and that would just solve that guy's problem.
I'll take a look.
Thanks.
So we can put up. Yeah.
But isn't Polaris just like the Iceberg REST catalog only, and or
No, they do Delta also.
Oh, they do more now. Okay.
Yeah, like
I mean, it was
there's that
understandable, right? Like-
there's that war between Databricks and Snowflake over this stuff. So like Unity's got to do everything, and Delta's got to, and Polaris got to do everything, and they'll get along. So
yeah,
the
Snowbricks wars.
yeah. If anyone's interested, the best thing you can do is to get right in the middle of that war and make them shoot you with $1 billion checks. See you, Eric.
Yeah.
Yep. Bye. I got dinner coming. Bye.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, now that David is on the call, I have something. David, I don't know if you remember a couple months back, we were chatting on Slack about like supporting passing through the grant revoke APIs to Iceberg catalogs, so that if the catalog supports permissions management, then you have a way to do that via Trino. Let me know if this rings a bell for you, or if I need to bring up some more context.
Yeah, I remember that discussion. I guess that it really depends on what our strategy is for security. If we want to continue to have connector level security. I think Dane's got more opinion on that than me.
I thought we're getting rid of that.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Like, my suggestion is if you want most of the people that want connector level security are basically running one connector. So it's like write a global security manager that hooks up to the source you want. Because there's I don't want to go to extreme detail, but there's a really, really complex problem where the system is thinking in terms of one set of roles and permissions and things like that, and the connector's thinking in another one. And it's very hard to get it right, and it's very hard for anyone other than even myself, I have problems with it, to reason about how the security system works. And every time I've run into this, when people are excited, they're literally running exactly one catalog, or they're running so connector level security literally only works with the Hive catalog. So it only works with the Hive metastore. There are no other implementations. Really my thought was we actually remove it from the Hive catalog and we add a global one that's it's a system security metastore that only works with the Hive catalog, and here's the catalog it's hooked up to, and here's the store, and then we just delete all that code. It's also a massive maintenance effort. Every time you add a security thing, there are at the system level there are 3 or 4 layers of abstraction, and then there's 3 or 4 layers at the connector, and then there are each one has 4 implementations by default, So you add a method and you're editing like 30 files, not to mention all the test cases for it. And like, it's just for Hive, and it only works the Hive metastore, which is like, how many people use Hive metastore security?
Yeah,
So-
we have two systems. They don't interact very well together. It's just a big mess. So
I agree that management of permissions today only works for Hive, but enforcement of permissions, I can't speak to other connectors, but any HDFS or like file storage based connector can, or maybe I shouldn't say any like object store connector, any HDFS connector works fine with having those permissions enforced externally. And even, if you look at like an S3, we have the ability to pass along access tokens, right? And that's kind of the model that we are moving to, is the system that stores data is the only arbiter of who's allowed to access that data. And the only systems that are allowed to make decisions about who can access that data are like some, external thing that you have to go fetch tokens from to give yourself access to that data. So
Yeah.
I guess a couple questions, like, how do you think about that model that we support today of like passing in external tokens to some, external data provider that supports permissions in this kind of model? And how do you think about the model of like, an external system enforcing the permissions, but Trino not necessarily being able to manage them?
That's a different thing than what I was just talking about. So what I was talking about was Trino table level security.
Yeah.
So how does Trino think about security? How does it think about views and materialized views and functions and all that sort of stuff? None of that applies to the stuff that Eric was just talking about. This is just for everyone else in the call. What Eric is talking about is some connector decides to go and read data from a storage system, just like some connector could connect to like a Postgres database or whatever. And that system might be like, I reject you. And there's some capabilities in Trino to like basically attach the current user's identity to the thread so that can be picked up and propagated to those backend systems. I don't think we have any plans to remove those, although I highly recommend that no one actually does that. Eric knows the consequences of doing it. Like it's not a great practice. It's basically what people do to maintain interop with like Spark and other systems that don't have real security. And so they have to fall back to enforcing everything at the file system level, which is not fun and works at a very low level abstraction. But that stuff should work. I assume your question, like based on the first question, is you want to get notifications when like tables are dropped or grants or something like that?
So like Trino supports syntax for grant revoke, right?
Yeah.
And some connector, let's say you had Postgres as your backend. Like, I don't know if it does this, but you could implement that as like, it then sends along the grant revoke to Postgres and changes the underlying permissions on the table. That's exactly what we want for our Iceberg catalog, which supports permissions management. It goes and updates the file system level permissions. The only issue right now is that, we use the Trino catalog interfaces, the like Iceberg Trino catalog, which does not currently support propagating the permissions management, permissions right APIs. So all we want to do is update Trino catalog to give you the ability to implement those, optionally. We would implement it in ours, something like Hive's catalog or Iceberg REST catalog that doesn't yet support permissions management would leave them unimplemented.
Yeah, I don't think we should do that if our plan is to remove the security from the connector level, because you would implement both at the system level then, which you can do today.
Yeah, if you assume that Trino is doing all the permissions management, then this doesn't make sense. Yes.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if we remove connector level security and you implement your iceberg level security at the system level. So you do that with a custom plugin. So you would have, do you have more than one iceberg catalog?
No. Well,
okay,
sort of, but let's assume we don't. Assume we won't.
Either way, if you did or you didn't, you would basically have in your custom connector, like this catalog goes to this iceberg service, and you would just map through your permission checks, because you could do table level checks and basically stop queries earlier and get much better errors. But they would also be enforced at the file system level, and you could map through the grants. And you can do that today. Like, it's very straightforward. You would just need a config that says, like, this is where the catalog named iceberg goes to this URL for management.
Yeah, we could look at that, sort of layer it on top. Like, we would have our custom logic and then the Trino iceberg, and then that eventually comes down to our Trino catalog implementation.
Just hit me up on Slack. I'll explain it again if you didn't follow. I think it's just like, you write your own system level connector. It talks directly to your stuff. You're done. Like, everything you need is there. Is really simple.
Yeah, no, I think I got it. That does make sense, actually. Just like a little bit different layering. Okay.
Yeah, and in the long run, I think it's going to be much easier for everyone if we go down that path. So.
All right.
Cool. Thanks.
James, Vishal, anything else?
Yeah, I was just trying to see that at Bloomberg also we have a lot of custom or customizations, right, with respect to access controls and whatnot. So in between the OPA plugin and the new enhanced identities, which Trino passes all the way down, you might be able to do like whatever you want to do, really. But at that time, like, you are in charge of everything. Trino is just going to pass everything to you, and you can decide what the hell that means, like at your level with OPA policy and the identity and attributes which come with that identity object.
Cool. All right. Happy July, I guess, and I'll see you towards the end of July again. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone.